So, good afternoon. My name's Adrian. I'm the head of resourcing for RWE in the UK. And RWE are the organisation that own npower. So, npower, first of all, just a little bit about npower, is one of the operating companies in the UK owned by RWE. And RWE is one of Europe's largest gas and electricity suppliers. And npower alone in the UK provides gas and electricity to over 5.1 million homes and businesses. And it has the capacity to generate 40,000 megawatts of power. I've literally no clue what that means, but somebody did tell me once that it could boil 22 million kettles simultaneously. So, as much as I'd love a cup of tea, I am here to talk to you about candidate experience, and specifically the feedback from candidates about their experience. So I know Andy asked this question earlier in one of the roundtable conversations earlier, but I'd be really interested to see a hands-up exercise in terms of who does ask for feedback from their candidates after a selection process. So be honest, put your hand in the air if you're currently asking your candidates for feedback after a selection process. Okay, so that's not many of you, which isn't really a surprise. In a recent piece of research conducted by the REC, only 11% of organisations are asking candidates for feedback after the selection process. And in the same piece of research, 80% of candidates said that they've never been asked for feedback on their experience of a selection process, which I'm sure you will all agree is quite a worrying set of statistics. So as Andy said earlier, I'm not really sure why, as an industry, we've not embraced the opportunity to ask our candidates what they think. The opportunity for people to give us feedback is now absolutely everywhere, with organisations set up specifically just to capture feedback, and it's become commonplace for feedback to be sought on the things we buy, the things we eat, the places we stay, the jobs we do. And the consequences of not understanding your candidate experience through feedback and then acting on it can be alarming. Now, we've seen lots of statistics this morning, but in a recent study, it was reported that 83% of candidates will share their experience with friends and family, and 64% would then share their experience across social media. And we all know that bad news travels much further than good. So the experience that the candidate is going to receive can often be a bit of a lottery. I'm confident that we're all happy with the experience that our teams are providing to the candidates, but further down the line, when they meet the hiring manager, is the experience of that candidate going to be as good and consistent across all departments and across all hiring managers? And short of sitting in on every interview, and I know I haven't, and I'm pretty sure you haven't, got the resource to do that, how are we ever going to know? That's why in 2013, we decided that we were going to start capturing feedback and measuring feedback from our candidates. We introduced the Voice of the Candidate survey. Each candidate that came for an interview would receive a survey asking them about their experience of the hiring process, and the survey sent out at the same time every month, so we will capture candidates who both know the outcome of their interview and candidates that don't know the outcome of their interview, whether that's successful or otherwise, as we're very keen to ensure that we've got a cross-section of both successful and unsuccessful candidates, because we didn't want it to be distorted, or the feedback on the selection process to be distorted as to whether they'd been successful or not. We'd started with doing, let's just do successful, and no surprise, it was all great. And so we then said, well, let's do some of the unsuccessful, and no surprise, it wasn't so great. So consequently, we're now in a place where we will get a combination of both. I know I've been successful, I haven't been successful, or I don't know. The survey asked 5 questions, and it's derived from the life cycle of the candidate applying. We ask, in the first instance, the ease of use of our careers site, and if they got all the information that they required to be able to make a decision on an application. We also then ask a question around the quality of the briefing that they received from the resourcing team, what was it like, and did the information that they shared match with their experience? We asked what the interview experience was like with the hiring manager. We also asked what they thought about the level and the content of the interview or the assessment, and was it then appropriate for the level of role that they were applying for? And then finally, we asked, regardless of the outcome of their interview, was their experience positive enough for them to want to come and work for the organisation, if not now, but again, maybe sometime in the future? Again, Andy talked about this earlier. We then share those survey results on a monthly basis, and we share those survey results with the wider business, with our HR colleagues, specifically our HR business partners, and also then the hiring managers specifically about the campaign that they've been working on. And the results of the survey over the last year or so has started to drive some activity that my team have been involved in improving that candidate experience. So thinking about the life cycle of the candidate, the first place most candidates arrive with us is our career site. So we reskinned and simplified our career sites to make it more searchable and to make it easier to find information, so the candidate could make it easy to apply for a job and they could make a sensible decision on whether they wanted to come and join RWE or npower. We also have designed a candidate portal that the resourcing team will then share with the candidates when they come for interview. And this outlines everything that the candidate would need in order to perform at their best at an interview. So rather than having to look around in lots of different places for information around who's the CEO, how many offices have you got, what's your annual turnover, all of those types of things that you do before an interview and then nobody ever asks you, we provide it for you so you can concentrate your time on delivering the best possible interview and performing in the best way. We also then designed and rolled out a hiring manager toolkit for hiring managers to use prior to interview. It describes the most successful methods of interviewing, offers advice around selection, and advice around the best onboarding experience. But what it will also do for the hiring manager is build an interview framework with questions that they should include in an interview. And the toolkit lets the manager build a bespoke set of questions that will then be specific to the role that they're recruiting for, the level that they're recruiting for, and indeed the competencies that they want to test. This ensures that we then have the candidate receives an appropriate type and level of question for the role that they'll be considered for, but it also means that we get a consistent level of assessment and selection between candidates and across hiring managers. We also decided to offer some video content on our internet pages, providing hiring managers with examples of what a great interview would look like. And as you can see, it's starring yours truly. I'm not going to play it to you now. I am still waiting for my call from BAFTA. And then we also upskilled a number of members of my team to be able to interpret and offer best level advice on the testing that was available and what those results would then mean when it came to making the selection decision. And as you can see, all of this activity based on the feedback really started to drive the candidate experience forward. When we started measuring the feedback, the results were pretty respectable at around 85%, but over the course of 2014, and then in last year's results, they've gradually improved as the tools that we've developed have been deployed further and further into the business. And in 2015, the feedback on the results feedback from the candidates averaged around 95%. Satisfaction rate in the selection process, which absolutely we're really pleased with. So just going back slightly, in 2014, once we'd done all of this activity, we started thinking, well, it's great that we know what our experience is like, but how does that compare with anybody else's candidate experience? And there's no really way of finding out. However, all of that kind of thinking led to me to discover an REC-led initiative, which was called the Good Recruitment Campaign. And just a quick show of hands, anybody heard of it? There's a few in the room, excellent. So the campaign is a charter that sets out in 9 aspirational statements the principles of good recruitment. And the charter is then backed up with a set of guidance notes, and it offers organisations the opportunity to measure their own candidate experience and develop an action plan. To sign up, you don't need to be achieving all of those aspirational principles, but you just need to be able to aspire towards them. There's an assessment tool that you can carry out internally, and there's no requirement for you to share that assessment with anybody outside of your organisation, but you're then able to use that assessment and those results to develop yourself your own action plan. The advisory panel that built the charter, as you can see, has a number of representatives from some large organisations and business bodies across the UK. And the charter now has over 100 organisations signed up, which represents over 1 million employees in the UK. And here's just a small example of some of the well-known household names that have already signed. I think there's a few in the room that are represented. Now, there's no cost to join the campaign, just an acknowledgement by your organisation of a desire to improve good recruitment practice. As a signatory of the Charter, along with the self-assessment tools, you will receive access to the REC's Employer Hub that holds a wealth of information and resource, including access to the research papers that the REC have carried out. This one specifically was last year, which is the Candidate Strikes Back, which was specifically around people's feedback around the candidate experience. And then the most recent one, which was back end of last year, was a piece of research called Chain Reaction, which was both a procurement and HR-led piece of research, which was on the effectiveness of recruitment supply chains. So I would urge you to give some research into the Good Recruitment campaign. I found it a really useful tool in the last year to develop the way we improve our candidate experience. And if you are interested in joining, then, or just want to talk more about candidate experience, then just come and grab me after this. Happy to field any questions, or drop me a line on any of those addresses below. Thank you very much for listening.